I had $1,000,000,
If I had $1,000,000,
well, I'd buy you a house.
I would buy you a house.
And if I had $1,000,000,
If I had $1,000,000,
buy you furniture for your house.
maybe a nice Chesterfield or an ottoman.
And if I had $1,000,000,
If I had $1,000,000,
well, I'd buy you a K car.
a nice Reliant automobile.
And if I had $1,000,000, I'd buy your love. If I had $1,000,000,
I'd build a tree fort in our yard.
if I had $1,000,000,
You could help, it wouldn't be that hard.
if I had $1,000,000,
Maybe we could put like a little tiny fridge in there somewhere.
we could just go up there and hang out.
Like open the fridge and stuff, and there will always be foods laid out for us with little pre-wrapped sausages and things. They have pre-wrapped sausages, but they don't have pre-wrapped bacon.
Well, can you blame them?
Yeah.
If I had $1,000,000,
If I had $1,000,000,
well, I'd buy you a fur coat.
but not a real fur coat, that's cruel.
And if I had $1,000,000,
If I had $1,000,000,
well, I'd buy you an exotic pet.
yep, like a llama or an emu.
And if I had $1,000,000,
If I had $1,000,000,
well, I'd buy you John Merrick's remains.
ooh, all them crazy elephant bones.
And if I had $1,000,000, I'd buy your love. If I had $1,000,000,
We wouldn't have to walk to the store.
if I had $1,000,000,
Now we'd take a limousine 'cause it costs
if
more.
I had $1,000,000,
We wouldn't have to eat Kraft dinner.
but we would eat Kraft dinner
Of course we would, we just eat more.
and buy really expensive ketchups with it.
That's right, all the fanciest Dijon ketchup.
If I had $1,000,000,
If I had $1,000,000,
well, I'd buy you a green dress.
but not a real green dress, that's cruel.
And if I had $1,000,000,
If I had $1,000,000,
well, I'd buy you some art.
a Picasso or a Garfunkel.
If I had $1,000,000,
If I had $1,000,000,
well, I'd buy you a monkey.
haven't you always wanted a monkey?
If I had $1,000,000, I'd buy your love. If I had $1,000,000,
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 I'd be rich.
Hey, and welcome to Legal Knowledge. This is Michael. I'm Michael Oven. We are live today on Friday, the 20th of March, 2015. This is episode 708, What is Wealth? This is the second in a two-part series on poverty and wealth. We started last month and we're finished this month. If you are watching on Friday, we are live. Otherwise, you can watch our replays every Thursday mornings at 7 a.m. If you're watching live, you can call in at the top of the hour, or Facebook, or tweet, or email, and I'll read your questions on the air, or you can call and say them yourself. In some news about Access Tucson, we're still good till June, but beyond that, Access Tucson still needs your donations, as does Illegal Knowledge. We're still taking underwriting So please support us at underwrite@illegalknowledge.com or go to accesstucson.org to get more information on how to donate. When you're online or writing about or sending questions, use hashtags IKTV or IKTV Live or Illegal Knowledge, and our Twitter is at IKTV Live. And you can ask at Illegal Knowledge for email. So whichever way, send your questions now, and I'll read them on the air, and you can call in at the top of the hour. Tonight we'll be talking about wealth and how it's become so terribly unevenly distributed in the U.S. and how externalities are used by corporations to consolidate this wealth, and how that costs the public commons and in turn all of us. And using that and using that asset of the public commons is probably our greatest way of redistributing that wealth back to us to create a greater equality in society. So we have a wonderful show planned tonight. Before I get to that, I'd like to talk about a couple things. Most of this is up on the website, and I could probably do a whole show in this one part here with transportation in Tucson. But please go up and look on the website. We may do a show about this eventually, but the Suntran, the Ronstadt Transit Center is being redeveloped eventually. You can comment on all these things, as with the Broadway widening and the prima Association of Governments Transportation Improvement Plan, or program, I mean. Also, so that's all up on the website. So please go to Illegal Knowledge once we can get that there, and all that information is up there. The Tucson City Council just tried passing. Well, they didn't pass them. They set them for later review. Two laws. One is what I like calling the no assembly required law. And then there's the other one, which is the no picnics allowed. The no assembly required, it allows the police to change the definition of what an excessive assembly is. This has to do with the March Madness that happened last year. There was a sort of a semi-riot on University Avenue, but they have enough tools at their disposal. They don't need extra laws. And the no picnics, they technically would make picnicking in a park illegal if they chose to enforce it, but it's meant to enforce people homeless, essentially camping. And again, it's the mayor and council not living up to their democratic ideals, in my opinion. Anyway, the next Tucson mayor and council meeting is on April 7th. I'm sure they'll bring it up again, so please attend at City Hall. Downtown. The FCC ruled for net neutrality, and yay, we won. There are many congressional actions, not to mention the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which is on a fast track. It will actually work as SOPA did to, again, all these, this is all up on illegalknowledge.com. Right here, there's a petition there. It's a neat little video. The one good thing that the FCC did is they removed the obstructions which prohibited municipalities from having gigabit Ethernet. That's real nice. I'd like to have Tucson go ahead and do that. Are you listening, anyone from City Council? Broadband is now 25 megabits down and 3 megabits up, so please tell your ISP, because that's the minimum for broadband. If you don't have that, you're not getting broadband, according to the FCC. So check on the website for the petitions and the video. The text of the FCC's ruling is also up there. Speaking of rulings in Ferguson, it was one town, but I'm absolutely sure that it is the rule and not the exception. If that's what's going on with police departments all over the place. There is a North Miami police department that is doing the same thing. I'm sure there's hundreds, if not thousands, more. Tomorrow is 50 years since the Selma Bridge. We should have this by now, with excessive fines, debtors' prisons, civil forfeiture, and most certainly racism. It looks like we're barely crawling, but at least we're going somewhere, hopefully. we need to get more people involved in this, obviously. Speaking of race, Netanyahu, he was race baited by John Boehner. He took the bait. He's often more wrong than Cheney. And even though his party won, he's now isolated so many people in Israel. Even if Netanyahu doesn't want a two-state solution, I would assume that would mean he wants a one-state, single-state solution. Okay, well, that would mean that the current state is currently an apartheid state. So when do we start boycotting companies that do business in Israel? Start now? How about now? And more terrible racist news, they can get rid of some racist frats. But maybe Rush could be gone by the end of this month. It's the first day of spring today, so maybe it's time for us to clean out all the crap. Flush Rush. All right. We have we're going to bring back that Fauxghazi contest because with email Ghazi and all the other stuff that's going on, send your best fake scandal prepended with Ghazi afterward. So email Ghazi hashtags to at IKTV Live, and we will read them on the air. All right, so let me go ahead and introduce our panel tonight. We have a wonderfully illustrious, diverse panel here. We have Mary DeCamp. Yay, Mary. She is our go-to Green Party activist, as it were.
Thank you.
She's run for mayor. She's done all kinds of things. She's walked across the country. And she's here tonight. Also, next to Mary, we have Pamela Powers Hanley. She is the co-chair for the Arizona Democratic Progressive Caucus. She is an avid political blogger, and she and her husband Jim are both co-directors of Arizonans for a New Economy. Next to Pamela, we have Jim Hanley, who is the coordinator of the Progressive Democrats of America and the Tucson chapter. So I guess that would be the Progressive Democrats of Tucson. And so I wanted to talk tonight about really where wealth is made and how when a lot of corporations make wealth, they extract it from what I'm calling the public commons. I think that's a term that people use. I've seen it around, but they take from what belongs to all of us, and they go ahead and take it for themselves, and then sell it back to us for their profit. They oftentimes don't give back any kind of return for its use. You have all kinds of oil, mining, logging subsidies. Is this how wealth is made? Is this the best way that we can go about it? I mean, anyone want to?
No.
No. Okay.
Well, maybe Jim and Pam should start off telling how wealth is
Yes, we
generated
can-
in
we can-
banks
Right.
through
Yeah,
the
Through
reserves.
lending. Yeah.
Right. Money is created in banks, sort of like raising corn on farms through fractional reserve lending.
Yeah.
So banks are allowed to lend more money than they have on deposit, a multiple of what they have on deposit, which is considered their reserve. So whenever a loan is granted to an individual or a business, a corporation, a student, money is created that way. And when loans are paid off, money is eliminated. So that's the way
When
wealth
loans-
is created in modern economies.
When
So
loans are paid off, though,
Well,
the
if
bank
Jim
gets
was
the
a
money
bank-
from the loan, right?
I'm
The
sorry.
bank keeps the money from the loan.
They-
It essentially creates more money, doesn't it?
That's right. It does.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
I think
So it
I'm-
doesn't
I
go
maybe-
away.
That's
Yeah,
you're
if,
right.
if
You're
Jim
right,
were a
Michael.
bank and
Yeah.
I came and I brought my $100 and I put it with Jim,
Right.
he could turn around and
Loan
give
1,000 or so.
$900.
Yes.
Yeah.
To Pam.
9 to
So
1.
Right.
all of
Yeah.
a sudden, out of $100, 900
Yeah.
occurred.
Right. Is created.
Yeah.
And you're right. When Pam pays the bank the loan off, the $900, the $900 still exists.
Yeah, it doesn't
It's still on
disappear.
the books of the bank.
Right.
Yes, create. Now, the other kind of wealth creation that you're talking about is
Right.
when, through modern production methods, value is added to raw materials.
Right.
Right? So extraction of minerals, they have no value when they're in the ground,
Right.
or seed crops. Right? The seed has just a fraction of the value of what it produces.
Sure.
So that's a different form of material wealth that's created. I guess we could consider bank money to be a financial wealth. So it's a material wealth that there's kind of two kinds of wealth that's created there.
But again, what happens is that the money stays with the institution. I mean, obviously, if say the mining company or something, if it costs so much money to extract the minerals from the ground, and they wouldn't go at it unless they were making money off of that. But then they keep the money. I mean, minus what they pay their workers.
True. Yes.
They keep the lion's share of all this, as do logging companies, as do any of the. I put a little list down here of about pretty much everything that we can think of everything that I can think of between aquifers, rivers, forests, roads and rails, soil, oceans, all underground minerals, and air and sunlight all seem to have the same quality of being used by large either energy production or mineral production or paper or whatever mining without really any. I mean, shouldn't they be paying for the right to use these things? Wouldn't that help if that were the case? Wouldn't that sort of tend to reduce the gap that's happening?
Well, I think the easiest way to do that is to tax
Right.
to tax what is produced by those companies, so that a portion of the profits that are created return to the Commonwealth.
Right.
Correct.
And
Through,
because that's what's not happening.
treasury coffers.
Right.
It does. It's happening, but we feel that in a very minor way than what could be added to the coffers, to the treasuries.
Well, yes, but there's a lot of wealth that's created on Wall Street that's also not taxed.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that the progressives have talked about is this idea of a financial transaction tax. Because right now there's a lot of money being made by the instant trades made by computers.
Right.
And so Raul Grijalva and Keith Ellison of the Progressive Caucus in Congress, they have proposed year after year this financial transaction tax, which is also called the Robin Hood tax, which would make a very tiny percentage of a fee on every Wall Street transaction. And so it would actually take the volatility out of the market, and it would make billions of dollars, really. And it'd be taxing the people who have made the money in the last 10 years, or especially made the money since the crash.
Yeah.
And so that's a way to
And on speculation, right?
and on speculation, exactly. So yes, this financial transaction tax would be a big boon.
Yeah. All right. So, so let's talk about the whole GOP budget, because that was okay. The one thing in here that I was looking at, because we keep saying, I'll do this one first, and then we can get into the budget. But that we just had like 12 months of 200,000 plus jobs added. All right. So that's something around like 2.6 million for roughly around for the last year. How many did we lose to begin with? Wasn't it something like 12 million jobs that we lost in the crash?
I don't remember
Is it
I don't
something
remember the
like-
exact number, but that sounds
Yeah.
pretty close.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So we need still like 10 million more jobs, right?
Well, that depends on what kind of jobs you're talking about.
Well, right, and
here in
that's the other
Tucson-
thing.
Here in
Yeah.
Tucson, the jobs that are coming to Tucson are car wash jobs
Yeah.
and big box home goods store.
Call
And
centers, I guess.
Call centers,
Yeah.
they're big here. Low wage service jobs are not going to be what gets us out
No,
of
definitely not.
economic rut. It keeps us chained to the job as wage slaves, and nobody's really happy.
But even in terms of, okay, they may be lesser paying jobs, but even straight out numbers of jobs are not even close to what.
Oh,
we
as far as-
haven't climbed out anywhere near.
Well, especially not
Right.
in Arizona.
Now, there's something that I saw, the labor participation rate is something like 62.8%, which means that
Actually, are
30
engaged in
in
wage.
U.S. Yeah, so that means that 37.2% of the people who can work are choosing not to look for work. I think
Yes.
that's what that means. Yeah. So that would make, if we have a 5.5% unemployment rate, that would actually make our jobless rate 31.1% by my calculations.
It's
I
it's
did that
it's
right.
That
Yeah,
sounds a
it's-
lot worse.
it's-
Yes,
Let's
it
go
does.
back to the 6%
Yeah.
we
I
can
think
all
the-
live with.
isn't the I think common sense idea there is that if there are more jobs being created, general knowledge that people are getting work and that the work is worthwhile, that those discouraged workers will come back into the workforce. I think
Right.
that's
As soon as-
that's
yeah,
what's
once-
the common belief is. I
The
think, on
idea
that.
is that if you start if you create more demand, then you create more jobs
Right.
for the demand
Right.
and then that in turn pays more people to create more demand, and it snowballs in that way. The budget being a moral document, do you think that the GOP budget helps do that? Yeah, obviously, I think we know the
No.
answer, but in terms of where it falls flat on its face, would you like to?
Well, I'm horrified with
Yeah.
the military spending.
Yeah.
I think we get nothing in return. We
I think
put
we
all
get more
this.
wars.
We do.
Yeah.
We create more radicalized enemies out there who hate us and want to destroy the country. We could save a lot of money if we would redirect our military spending into more life-supporting jobs.
Yeah.
Or the
Ditto.
ideas that Obama came up with, the idea of free community college, right?
Right.
You know, in other countries, they're offering free university
Germany,
educations.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
we are not
lots of-
competing at all. And here on the Arizona level, you know, we've already shot one university's foot off. We're going to shoot the rest of the university's feet off and close, you know, I'm not close Pima College, but all that money that's being
Well, they're
taken
cutting
from
it from the Arizona budget.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also the Maricopa community colleges. And so instead of growing the economy by offering good jobs and giving people a way to raise themselves up, we're starving the economy, and it's just going to get worse. You know, we're in a hole, and the Republicans in the legislature are they're still digging.
Yeah.
You know, they're still saying
they
they
could be
don't.
spending money to
Well,
stimulate.
no, there
more,
are a number
to
of ways where
create
they
more
could
R&D.
they could raise raise revenue.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I wrote an article a few weeks ago that said that they could raise revenue by legalizing marijuana, by establishing a public bank, by not enacting the tax cuts that they have planned, and by investing in science and research and growing the university system and growing innovation,
Yeah.
rather than growing car wash jobs.
Right.
You know, I mean, we don't want to be a state of maids and gardeners and car wash.
So if nothing passes, it looks like it's probably going to get vetoed. It's including getting rid of Obamacare, and
It's already passed
replacing
and
it.
signed.
Yeah, right. But I mean, it'll be vetoed.
By who?
Well, I would
Doug
assume.
Ducey signed it.
No,
No,
I'm
we're talking about
talking
the
about
federal
I'm talking
budget.
about the
Yeah.
national GOP budget.
Right.
That then leaves us with what? Sequestration, right? Is that the same
Yes,
thing?
I think so.
Yeah.
I
So,
think it does.
Is that better or worse?
That's a really good question. It's a really good question, and I think it's a toss-up.
Yeah.
Because as Mary mentioned, 56% I think of the budget is military spending or military-related spending. I assume that
Yeah.
there is veteran support is part of that figure as well.
I would hope.
But it, just the industry, the military-industrial complex, doesn't create a lot of jobs for the amount of money that is appropriated for it, because it's very capital intensive production. You know, you need a lot of high-tech machines, and it's not a good job creator, the military industrial. If we were invading countries and taking them over and and extracting their wealth, you could argue that that it would be economical, you know. But really, the military really is just used to make foreign countries safe places for U.S. companies or multinational corporations
I thought it was
to do
to
business.
make the defense contractors rich.
Right. It does that along
Yeah,
the way,
okay.
too.
We're making the
Right.
world safer democracy,
Right.
you guys. Come on.
Okay. You know, the other thing that's going on a lot is this whole right to work. Arizona's a right to work state. There are a bunch of states in the Northeast that are not. And the whole it seems that unions versus Wall Street are kind of getting the Democrats in a bind over who decide over this the whole would you want to support unions? Would you want to support whoever's backing these companies that don't want to? I mean, the cartoon that I liked was the one where the guy was working at some shitty job or something, and he was like, well, at least I'm not paying minimum wage, at least I'm not paying union dues, which is right to
yes,
work,
right,
yes.
which means that you in a state that was not right to work, you don't have to, I mean, you would automatically pay the union dues, whereas in a right to work state, you can opt out of paying your union dues for strikes and whatnot, and lawyers' fees.
That's right.
Bargaining and whatnot.
Well, what you're talking about is general effort at wage suppression.
Yeah.
And it's my opinion that in these modern times, and I'm talking about especially from 1980 to the present, there has been an assault on organized labor with government support,
Yeah.
and certainly from large corporations, in order to maximize profits, to extract more profit from production, and it has been causing a diminishment of the middle class and a terribly skewed distribution of wealth in the country, which is very bad for the economy. It's been generally impoverishing. We know, we've talked about the 99%, generally impoverishing the population since Reagan really led the charge in the assault on organized labor when he decided to break the Professional Air Traffic Controllers Union in 1980. So he gave a signal to big business that the government was open to and supportive of intrusions on organized labor, and that's really the only mechanism that workers have to increase their share of what they're producing, their wages, and stronger economies are those in which workers have a good wage base, in which production is not so terribly skewed on the profit side.
So in the public sector, unions are what, like 7% of the
Yeah, I think the
quite low.
figure.
7% of the
It's quite low.
workforce is
And it's going to
represented by
get
unions.
worse with the Trans-Pacific Partnership that's
that-
being
that's okay.
fast-tracked through.
Right.
I mentioned that in the beginning, but I just said go look on the website. But yeah, let's talk, because that, number one, there are two issues here. One is that it's on a thing called a fast track, which means that it doesn't get reviewed. It doesn't get read. It doesn't get read into the congressional record. It doesn't get inspected. There can be stuff in it. It was leaked, and that's the reason why we know what's in it. It was on WikiLeaks, I think, or something.
Well, they haven't even distributed copies.
Well, not to the
They-
Congress people. I mean,
Right.
you can go on WikiLeaks and read it. I think is the way it's working right now. But,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's
Wow.
how we know roughly what's in
Yeah.
it, because
Wow.
it was, yeah.
Yeah.
It was leaked.
Yeah, and so one of the things that I'm terribly against is that it would bring back the SOPA and PIPA type thing, the Stop Online Piracy Act, which also did a whole lot of other nefarious things. It was against relative internet freedoms, and PIPA was protect online privacy.
It
internet privacy.
criminalizes the little
But,
guy
yeah.
and gives tremendous breaks to the corporations.
Right, and that's why I'm not in favor of it, but also it's another NAFTA. It's a giant NAFTA for the Pacific Rim.
On
essentially.
steroids.
Yeah. And
Well, it would hurt all sorts of laws because it tries to, quote, level the playing field. So it hurt some of our wage laws. It hurt some of our public health laws, like the anti-smoking laws, and it ripples into all sorts of issues. And so, yes, anything drawn up in secret by 600 corporations can't be good for us. I mean, we can almost assume it.
Yeah, I've heard that it goes so far as to make it difficult or illegal for a municipality to enforce zoning codes on a foreign corporation which wishes to set up a plant in that municipality. In fact, that not only the mechanism is that corporation could sue that municipality for lost profits on production that they haven't even started because of problems with zoning or with environmental rules, those kinds of things. That it diminishes not only the local authority, but also federal authority as well. We think that it's an intrusion on U.S. sovereignty itself.
Yeah. Okay. And wouldn't that would then? I mean, this is what I'm trying to wrap my head around. How is fast track even constitutional? I mean, how can you not know what's in something? How do you avoid that? And suddenly, it's a treaty. It has to be approved by the Senate. How
You can
does this
improve it
happen?
without reading it.
Yeah. Well,
It boggles the mind. It really does. Especially, I tend to generally support the president, but the way that he is so enamored to this fast track and I just don't understand it, because it cannot be good for American workers. In fact, labor, the Teamsters are opposed to it, for instance, say that it's a race to the bottom.
Right.
It is a race to the
It's
bottom.
an equalizing the wages of the more advanced countries, industrialized countries,
It's trying to
to
bring
the
them
wages
down to-
of those that are.
you see, I liked it when it was fair trade and not free trade. Do you remember back in the
Right.
80s, early
Yeah,
80s,
right.
there
Yeah.
was a debate on whether or not we should
Yeah.
have fair trade or free trade, and then fair trade just went out the window, and now it's just free trade, and then how much free trade or something, and I mean, the whole idea with fair trade was that if you're a country that is well off and you're paid well, you should be able to compete on an even footing, so that you don't have to have your wages go down to the basement to compete one for one on foreign exchange rates. That you have the companies that go into countries where the wages are like a dime a year or whatever, they would get taxed or tariffed to do business there, and then that would be the cost of doing trade, and that would be the basis of fair trade. What is there any movement to return to that? I mean, can we? Do you think it's going to be impossible to roll back that clock on that sort of idea?
Well, one of the things that goes on is this idea of the local economy.
Yeah. Okay.
That organizations like Sustainable Tucson
Right.
is promoting, where
Local first.
local first, right?
Right.
Where you're trying to localize production, distribution, and consumption, so that we don't have this internationalization of capital primarily,
Yeah.
but of production and distribution of goods.
And then you were talking about a local bank kind of thing, like what was? Can you explain
Right.
that a little bit?
Yeah, that's what we've
Everyone
been.
knows exactly what that.
That's what we've been working on with
Yeah.
Arizonans for a New Economy, is the idea of establishing a public bank either in the state of Arizona or locally. And we think that that Tucson or Southern Arizona and also Nogales would be ripe for something like this, because
So
the
you're not
idea.
talking about Tucson time traders.
No,
Local
no. The
currency
idea
like
is
that.
that right now all of the money for the city of Tucson is being held by Wells Fargo on Wall Street and
Okay.
invested on Wall Street for the benefit of Wells Fargo's shareholders, not for us.
Yeah.
So then, when we wanted to fix our potholes, we got a bond. So what do? We go back to Wall Street and borrow our money back at an interest rate. And so the idea of public banking is to bring the taxpayer money, all or part of it, back to Tucson, establish a public bank, and invest in Main Street, invest here for the good of our economy and the good of our community.
So it's kind of like a credit union, but more local.
Well, what it is, it would be public money, and in fact the city has a pilot program going on now. It's a well kept secret.
Right.
They put in $5 million initially, and then $10 million, and it's being held by Alliance Bank, and those city funds are being invested. And the first round of loans that they gave, the biggest one was $2.5 million to a U of A startup.
Oh.
So that's a way better business to foster than another call center, or another warehouse,
So it's
or
kind of like you were
something.
talking about, Mary, on the last show, where a bunch of local people pull their money together.
No, it's
and
quite
decide-
different.
But
It's quite different because the bank that Pam is talking
Okay.
about is subject to regulations. It
Oh, I see.
is a publicly held trust. The arrangement that I spoke of at the last
Was just
show
a group of
was,
people.
yeah, it was more of an individual solution where you get 8 or 10 people in a Solari circle. Everybody
Yeah.
kicks in whatever amount, maybe $1,000 each, and then you do micro loans to businesses in the community.
Right.
Like
and
a
that-
Friends Bank
Right.
type of
Yes.
thing, yes.
Yes.
The reason why those kinds of solutions are being sought and created by people is because we feel that the banks are not forthcoming with loans to small businesses in particular at rates that are sustainable by those small businesses. And we know that I think it's something like 60 to 70% of jobs are created by small businesses, and we're talking about businesses of 50 employees or less. And so if you have very tight credit policies of banks, those small businesses don't have the resources to expand their production of goods and services and hire more workers. So the city of Tucson is in it maybe 20 or 30 year economic stagnation, we think, because of the domination of Wall Street banks here.
Well, and also with the it's a whole different way of growing business, right? So we would be investing. We believe in the idea of local first. So we'd be investing in growing your own businesses here rather than competing with other cities for something like home goods. Or the Apple plant that they're putting up in Mesa, where those cities are giving away tax dollars and giving away buildings and giving away land and competing with other cities. And again, it's a race to the bottom. Whereas this is, so you have, they say you look at what you have. So, and Al Perry's got about a song. We got cactus, right? And that's kind of a joke, but we do have a lot of exotic plants. Most of the drugs that are out on the market came from a plant.
Right.
Give a grant to the U of A to go out and test all those plants that are out there in the desert for psychoactive properties, for medicinal properties. We could have drug development here instead of a call center. There's so many things that we could do that we're not doing, but it takes the mindset to change at the city level or the state level or the county level.
So is there a way that we could incentivize or tax or something like that so that doesn't so that changes more readily?
Well, mostly what we've been doing is we've been trying to educate the public. Because when people hear about public banking, they're like, wait a minute,
Yeah.
the city of Tucson's money is being held by Wells Fargo and the state's money is being held by Bank of America? We didn't know that, and so
Right.
when people hear about it, they start talking, and we've got 3 champions in the legislature who have been working on it on state level. A Republican, David Farnsworth from Apache Junction, Steve Farley from LD9, and Andrea D'Alessandro from the Green Valley area. So they're working on this with us. We have another guy who's a rancher and used to be in the electric co-op business who's helping us. So we have the Unitarian Universalist churches, and so we've got this broad coalition of people spreading our message, and that's where we are now.
All right. So let's talk about other ways of getting us out of this rut that we're still in. I've been saying that we should have jobs, green infrastructure jobs, solar, wind, hydro, wave and tidal, not dams and geothermal, but yeah. What's being? I mean, I had Sandra Kennedy and Jim Holloway here, and they both lost on the Arizona Corporation Commission last in November. But what is there any hope there in Arizona of getting anything through energy wise or
At
through-
the state
yeah,
level?
at the
At
state
the
level,
state
or-
legislature?
or working with, well, basically none really. Is there?
Well,
Not up there.
I mean,
I-
basically, we have to
I-
wait till what 2016 to do anything. Is that really what it is?
No,
I mean,
no.
is
We
that-
can take action locally
we
without
have the
government
city
approval.
council election coming up. But, you
Yeah,
know,
but we're not going to get any candidates.
well, there's that one independent guy running for Shirley Scott and Ward
The
4.
chance of knocking off an incumbent is pretty small. But individually, locally, we can make decisions about how we use our money, about how we value resources that we do access. And I think that we could do more with micro loans, person to person, to start up businesses.
Yeah. You can try to get the minimum wage raised. Walmart said that they were probably going to raise it eventually to the amount that it would be raised to naturally anyway by the time that would happen.
Yeah, right, but if you
mean-
sit down with a pencil or a spreadsheet and you run the numbers on how much the hourly wage is, how many hours a person can work, and then you tote up the cost of rent and transportation and child care and health care and food, it's staggering. I mean, it's overwhelming immediately.
Yeah.
And we could do more to shift the distribution of resources to address more of the needs.
Yeah. I mean, we were talking about the whole negative taxation in the last show, too.
Yeah?
That again seems like it's something that would have to be 2016 or later.
I had experience with a Green Retrofit Co-op, which was a group of people who came together and went house to house to insulate, install energy efficient windows, seal up cracks and leaks, and the savings that you realize in green jobs like that is considerable.
Yeah, and those are things that people would want to do because it'll save them energy.
Right.
It'll save them money just right off because of the fact that they've done it.
And teach them skills.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Mary's talking about this effort coming up from the grassroots effort, you know, but imagine what could be done when government
Right.
is engaged. And you could have crews of people
Sure.
just working in the neighborhoods.
new
and
WPA.
Well-
that's right, where you have, the, public knowledge of the program. They know that there's a crew in the neighborhood. They're coming through. They're going to put insulation in your ceiling and, make water efficiencies, those kinds of things. Create plenty of jobs, and the resulting savings it creates more wealth for the community.
And connects the people
Yeah.
in the
Oh, yes,
communities,
that's
which
true.
is another
Yeah,
bonus.
that's true.
We could do that with our buffalo grass abatement. Instead of spending so much money on Roundup and herbicides and chemicals, we could hire people
Yeah,
to go out
and do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
remove it.
But I don't want to skip over one point that you raised, and I think that by raising the legal minimum wage, that's the fastest way to improve the economy.
Yeah.
Because you just whenever workers have more money in their pockets, it's good for the economy, because what you're doing there is stimulating consumer demand.
Sure.
And that's really what
You're giving them more money
right.
so they have more to spend. So that there's
Exactly. The supply siders, the Reaganomic people, believe that you should pave the way for production, right? Reduce regulations, do whatever you can to reduce the expenses of converting raw materials, those kinds of things. That's the supply side economics. No serious economist believes that works, and we've been trying it for 30 years.
Well, the rich
It
already
doesn't
have money
work.
to spend, so if you give it to them, you give more to them, they're probably not going to spend too
Right.
much more than
Yeah.
they're already spending.
Yeah.
So-
And that's why right now we're engaged locally in the fight for 15, focusing on fast food workers
Yeah.
and on the super exploited adjunct faculty at the University of Arizona.
And the community colleges.
Right,
Yeah.
they're too.
Adjuncts are everywhere.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
But yeah, I think it's good that we have the SEIU organizing the fast food people for $15 per hour, and then also organizing the adjuncts for $15,000 per class. Because right now they're paid $2,000 or $3,000 at most per class, and it doesn't cover any of the time that they take to prepare a class. You
It's
know,
disgraceful.
yeah, it's disgraceful.
That these state institutions of higher education have become intellectual sweatshops.
Yeah.
It's really it's really what has happened here, and it's a disgrace. It's a disservice to the students. It's a disservice to the institutions themselves, really, because you just are not going to get the product that the higher quality product, and I mean students
yeah.
from that
Yeah,
kind
yeah.
of
Well, and you can see how that's hurt the local economy too, because 15, 20 years ago, most of the faculty were professors, and they had the income of $65,000 a year, and they had benefits, and they had vacations and things like that, and now
you have all these
now you
adjuncts
have
and
with it,
TAs
too.
and they stuck with it.
It was a career.
It was a career, and they were experts. And not to say that the adjuncts are not experts. I was an adjunct myself,
Right.
And so I understand that they're dedicated people, but they're getting paid such a pittance, $2,000-3,000 a class.
Right.
So maybe you're making $12,000 a year rather than $65,000, and no benefits and no vacation, and
And there's instability too.
The instability,
People jump
yes.
from job to job, and you lose the institutional
Right.
knowledge and the history, and that sense of connection once again.
What about the online courses and stuff? Is that contributing to that? Do you think, or is that in some way? What do you
well,
think?
that contributes to hiring fewer faculty.
Right.
Because people can do 200 or 300
you don't get
students.
the individual.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I had, when I taught at the U of A, I had an online component to my class, but it was primarily a face-to-face class. But I think online classes are difficult, especially for
Having
younger
an online
people.
component is completely
Yeah,
separate
yeah.
from having an all online.
All online,
right?
yes.
Yeah, that's us. Yeah,
I don't know.
because ASU is doing that a lot, because I guess their funding is so dried up.
Yeah, I think
trying
you
to
miss the connection with the professor and the other students. And I mean, my students used to come up and talk to me afterwards, and they'd tell me about their roommates and this and that. And so the class was a community, and I don't think you get that when you're all online. You don't help each other.
So any chance of getting rid of student loan interest or student loans at all. That's
Well,
again, we got to wait for
now more than half of
2016 again for that.
half of the
2017,
students carrying debt have defaulted on their loans.
Yeah,
Wow.
We're talking over $1 trillion.
yeah.
And what they're doing is, I think, voting with their money and saying, you know, I don't value what I've been given here. I'm not going to pay for it.
Right.
And that is an area in which public banks can do a great service for our younger people and for the community at large by buying student debt, which is at a higher interest rate, even 8 or 9%.
Yeah.
Public banks, such as the Bank of North Dakota, the Bank of North Dakota is holding over $1 billion in student loans for North Dakota students, and this is a state with a population of about 740,000.
Yeah.
So it's an enormous sum of money that that the Bank of North Dakota has been underwriting. And think about if you can reduce the interest rate on a student loan by half, which could be done, then in the same process, you're reducing the monthly payments by half, right? And you're freeing up discretionary income, right? That before had been flowing to Wall Street banks primarily.
But the thing, yeah, and that's the thing. The student loans. I mean, you think that the government's handing them out, and I guess that is sort of what's happening with, I mean, Pell Grants and whatnot. But the guaranteed student loans, those are from the government, I thought. But it turns out that the banks are servicing all these loans.
Right.
The government's just handing it over to the banks. I think the banks make all the money off these, and the government's still making a decent return on it. But I'm thinking, you know, as long as it keeps up with the rate of interest, or the inflation. I'm sorry, the rate of inflation. That should be enough because what we're doing is we're investing in education. The education itself is a value, and we're not taking that as its own measure of wealth. In fact, you know, we're looking at it as, look, we have to get money off of this. In addition to, and you don't have to. You can just leave it at the rate of inflation.
I appreciate you bringing in that point, because so much of our discussion about wealth uses
money to mean
as
wealth.
the yardstick of value, and what we find is it's the intrinsic values that are really more important and more lasting.
True.
When
Yeah.
you get to the end of life and ask people how they feel about their life, it's the human connections, the experiences that they've had that are the most important to them, not the house that they lived in, the material goods that they amassed.
Yeah.
There's that saying about he who dies with the most toys wins, but you're dead.
Yeah.
You know,
Still dies. Yes.
be
I think
alive,
that's-
be engaged, find your wealth from intrinsic sources.
Yeah, remember Rosebud,
Right.
Citizen
Right.
Kane,
I don't
right?
think anyone remembers that.
I had just watched Turner Classic Movies
Yeah.
for a month. It's bound to come on again.
Kane, just in case. Yeah.
Well, talking about the student loans, you know, that's why Obama suggested the free community college, because
Right.
Yeah.
if the feds could bankroll that, and it would
Yeah.
be cheaper than
It's
what
the
they're
same-
paying in these
right,
loans.
It's the same thing
you
that
know.
they're basically
Yeah.
doing. It's just that they're paying for it.
Well,
at
we're cutting
first
out
and
the
not-
we're cutting out the middleman.
Yeah,
It's
we're
not going
cutting
to
out
the
the
bank.
banks.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
You know,
Yeah.
frankly, this country produces so much wealth. We could offer free education
Right.
from
Well,
kindergarten through
We
Other
PhDs.
countries
we
do,
cut
along with
$100
single
billion
payer
from the
health
military.
care.
We
Yes.
could do it.
It's
Well, yes.
I mean, right there.
Priorities were
That would do
reordered.
it.
it's rapacious.
Instead, we want to raise it by what, 93 billion or something,
Right.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. And right now, this current, you know, what Mary was talking about, the current situation is that we are growing young people, and the ones that are fortunate enough to get college degrees are saddled with this student debt, and at the same time they're unable to find
Find a job,
jobs
yeah.
which are
Yeah.
which they are capable of doing, and so we're wasting this this resource that has just had to be purchased, right?
Yeah.
With somebody who knows how to, I don't know, write a book or whatever, is delivering pizzas, and it's an enormous waste of resources, all at the service of capital, all at the service of banks, and it just doesn't have to be this way.
Yeah.
And it's bad for the economy. It's driving the country into being a second-rate country, sort of the way that Great Britain became that, you know.
So when we give our talks, we always say that austerity is a lie. We don't need to have these budget cuts. The money's just in the wrong place.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. Okay. So let's see. One other thing. The globalist corporations are basically hiding their capital and profits overseas. They're doing what's known as corporate inversions, where they will buy a company somewhere, some little thing somewhere way far away, and then say that they're not in the U.S. There's a thing that's called deferral, which when you don't have to report your income until you bring it back on shore. There's we're talking about getting rid of that. Is that gonna? There's no way of doing that other than federally. You have to wait for
these
that.
These are
all
the
great things, but
entities
they can't
that we are
happen
bending over
during the-
backwards to make happy, that institutionalize the tax avoidance.
Yeah.
It's it's scandalous, and it shouldn't be tolerated by the American people.
All right. All right. Any last thoughts? Okay.
I say create your own wealth.
I said
say
find the
don't.
niche that you love and do what no one else does, and exploit the hell out of it.
You know, I like
I say live simply. Reduce your wants. You can meet them more easily, and everybody's happier.
All right. So again, we have to vote to change all this. Unfortunately, we might have to wait till 2016 to do that. But we can also start petitions. We can start locally. We can start here and create more wealth for all of us. We can get there from here. All right, that's our show. Stay tuned for the next show in 1 month on Friday the 17th of April 2015. Thanks everybody in Access Tucson. Thanks to our crew. Bye everybody. Keep it local, keep it Access. See you in a month. Bye-bye.